And the warp is very deep, so...
Greetings to the 24.9 thousand grimdark enjoyers of my channel, and a friendly hello to the 58% who haven't subscribed. This time the focus turns to a Chaos Space Marine Legion I am rather fond of. A legion responsible for laying the groundwork for the grim darkness of the far future. A legion specializing in the demonic and the profane. It's a thematic list build for the word bearers. As per usual, we'll review the toolkit we're working with. The Chaos Space Marines army rule is Dark Pacts, which allows your units to gain powers from the Chaos Gods by making said pact before they shoot or fight. This is done with a leadership test. If the test fails, the gods scorn that unit with a couple of mortal wounds, but regardless, your weapons gain sustained hits 1 or lethal hits for the effort. Mechanically, I rate it. It gives a meaningful buff ensuring your bad guys can punch up, dialing in your efficiency as needed, whether you're dealing with volume or quality. Though narratively, while I don't think it's a great army rule for every Chaos Space Marine Legion, or Renegade chapter of Space Marine, I do think it's peak for the word bearers. When it comes to the detachment rules, we're going with the new Cabal of Chaos Detachment. Channel fans will know I consider the 10th edition Chaos Space Marines Codex to be an utter failure with regards to how it serves the word bearers.
That detachment that is really focused on the one from the Index really leans into their kind of pacts with the different Chaos Gods and the different marks. So that one's a great way to represent the word bearers.
The gist of it is, while Pact-Bound Zealots positions itself as a word bearer's detachment, it doesn't offer anything for wholly marking your army undivided. It doesn't do anything for demons, possessed, cultists, or dark apostles, and it doesn't offer any of the back-end tools word-bearers players are familiar with from previous editions, a lack which is made more glaring by the fact the other Legion-oriented detachments got theirs. If that isn't an utter failure, I don't know what is. In any case, I'd argue that the Cabal of Chaos serves the word-bearers better. It still keys off of doing Dark Pacts, which is a great start. But instead of changing your critical hit thresholds for ranged and melee, and lethal hits and sustained hits, it simply offers buffs for melee and shooting. If your shooting attacks are within 9 inches of a Psyker, those attacks have +1 strength. And if your melee attacks are within 9 inches of a Demon Prince, those attacks have +1 AP. Personally, I'm not big into Demon Princes, but it is thematic for the word bearers. And I do love the idea of the word bearers using warp bolters and demonic munitions, which are mechanics I've been toyed with in my own homebrew rules. I won't get into the weeds of enhancements here, as I'll cover the ones I'm using in the list breakdown, but on the stratagem front there are some notable strong wins. What we have available are a reactive mortal wound defense through a Feel No Pain, wound or model regeneration for 1 command point, a mortal wound smite type in the shooting phase, the ability to give a unit's ranged weapons ignores cover, advance and charge for your infantry units, and a defensive stealth aura keyed off of Psykers or Demon Princes, all of which have a pretty strong thematic justification for the word bearers. But there is a very glaring lack, a pretty stark point of criticism made apparent by this detachment, though we'll get to that during the list build. For this one, the list goals are as follows. Malign Sorcery, to build a list which can feed into the sorcerous psychic intent of our detachment rules, and Might of the First Heretics, to do so while flexing the heretical staples of the word bearers. And with all that said, let's head over to the list breakdown. Let's begin with the zealous, forward-pushing bulk of our band of Diabolists. Naturally, I think it's most suitable to start with the Warlord, which will be a Demon Prince on foot. He's here to stage towards the middle, and spread out his aura for +1 melee AP as needed. He's been given the Infernal Avatar Enhancement, buffing his melee weapon strength by 2 and AP by 1. Combined with the Mark of Khorne, it brings his strike profile up to a mighty strength 12 AP 3, so now he can cook pretty good. Defensively, because of balanced dataslate updates, the Lord of Chaos ability sees he now gets Lone Operative when near infantry, similar to a Loyalist Primarch. He also gives infantry near him cover, and if need be, he can use the Shroud of Chaos stratagem to give stealth as well. This is followed up by a sorcerer who is leading a squad of 10 legionnaires. This squad is here to hang out near the Demon Prince, ensuring he can get Lone Op when he needs it, and put out a psychic bubble for our detachment rule. The Legionnaire squad is equipped mostly for melee. We have one heavy melee weapon, one last cannon. The champion has an accursed weapon, mostly for flavor, since rules-wise I feel heavy melee is just better. And I've also included a Balefire Tome for our psychic theme. The last cannons benefit big from our detachment rule, as they now hit that wound on 3's breakpoint versus toughness 12 targets. And I've elected for these to be big squads as it's easier to leverage the no rest and death stratagem, as well as making them a few points cheaper. I'll also mention that our sorcerers hold some pretty clutch potential. They can shoot out with Infernal Gaze, potentially generating devastating wounds, which can then key off the Gifts of Chaos ability to generate some mortal wounds, and can still dip into the Mutation's Curse stratagem for further mortal wounds. Pretty cheeky. Following that, we have a repeat, another 10-man legionary squad led by a second sorcerer. This squad also gets the benefit of being caddied around in a rhino transport. Escorting the rhino are 2 venom crawlers, which are here to skirmish and pepper at elite infantry squads. After that, we have our chosen retinue. No, not a squad of chosen. These are word bearers. Obviously, the chosen in the Legion gain the honor of being possessed. It's a fat squad of 10, led by a Master of Possession. Now, Possessed are pretty lackluster in 10th edition, another one of the failings of the 10th edition Chaos Space Marines Codex. But regardless, they are a thematic unit the word bearers ought to flex. To help in that effort, the Master of Possession has been given the enhancement Mindblade, which gives the unit's melee weapons Lance, for +1 to wound on the charge. So now our big bad word bearers possessed can finally wound guardsmen on 2s. Which is a rather embarrassing flex, but it speaks volumes to how poorly GW handled Possessed in 10th edition. And this might be as good a point as any for a little break. I noticed a little something while building this list. So GW has released the Cabal of Chaos, a detachment which sells itself as the premier psychic detachment for the Chaos Space Marines. And when you look at the mechanics in isolation, it seems pretty good. It's got desirable tools, and it's offering you the ability to build a list which aims to flex the chaotic might of the Immaterium. And if you're expecting a giant but, you'd be right. The but of it is that in trying to lean into a psyker-heavy theme, the thematic and narrative lacks of the Chaos Space Marines rules are laid bare. For instance, when I first added the Demon Prince to this list, my immediate thought was, oh, we want to flex psychers, right? So I'm definitely not going to mark him Khorne. Surely it would be more useful for my Demon Prince to be a psyker in the Psychic Detachment. So I'll opt for literally any other Mark of Chaos, as the historic precedent in nearly every other edition was that your Demon Prince became a Psyker and gained the Psyker keyword when doing so. But not in 10th edition, so now we have a Khorne Demon Prince as the leader of our Psychic Detachment. Similarly, I also thought, for sure we want a ton of Legionnaires running around with Balefire Tomes to act as psychic vectors. Elite profane psychic kill teams, able to spread around our detachment's +1 strength in shooting. Because after all, psychic war gear upgrades like the Balefire Tome used to make the unit gain the Psyker keyword. But not in 10th edition. Even a unit like the Venom Crawler, a unit whose lore frames it as a soul well, a reservoir of demonic energy, a mobile container of warp juice, would in previous editions benefit your psychers while nearby. You'd think here, in the Psychic Detachment, it would shine, but alas, it is not the case. Not in 10th edition. All of these points are failings of the 10th edition Chaos Space Marine Codex. Failings made all the more clear with GW's new Cabal of Chaos detachment. It's a detachment which asks you to build a thematic composition of units, which the foundational text fails to support. And rather embarrassingly, all of these lacks could have been remedied with the balanced dataslate quarterly update which accompanied this detachment. But I guess GW didn't think about it. Well, here's to the next quarterly update. And now, with my salt reserves emptied, let us return to our thematic list build. Serving as the delivery mechanism for our Possessed, while also providing anti-armor support, is a Chaos Land Raider. Pretty much everyone knows what Land Raiders do. They're tough, and they let units disembark and charge. But the unique flex here is that if we're in range of a Psyker, we'll have 4 Strength 13 last cannon shots. Protecting our home base is a squad of 10 cultists. Nothing fancy here. If the enemy has deep strikers, the cultists can hang back and attempt to zone them out of your home objective. And if enemy deep strike isn't on the menu, let them sticky your home objective and then send them off on some side quests. Following that, we have our armored support, taking the form of 2 Predator Destructors. The Predator autocannon isn't a terrible weapon, but bumping its strength to 10 from our Cabal of Chaos detachment rule is big money value. Add to that its Destructor ability, and easy access to Ignore's cover from the Soul Seeker's stratagem, and it becomes premier anti-Terminator tech. Hobby time. We can include the Rhino here as well, but for any Traitor Legion, I think Deimos chassis Rhinos and Preds are the way to go. They just have a better build quality, and if you can apply some Chaos Vehicle upgrade bits, some wear and tear, they'll make for a vastly superior Chaos Rhino or Chaos Predator, much more fitting for veterans of the Long War. With regards to the Predators themselves, I love the idea of the Word-Bearers' vehicles wielding demon-infused weaponry, and I think some Skull Cannon barrels, from the Khorne Demons range, will do just the trick. And the last 2 units are more Psychers for bonus support. The first is a second Master of Possession. He's here for flex based on the mission needs or the opposing army. He can hang back with the cultists, swap as leader for one of our Marine squads, or tag along solo in the Rhino since it can hold 12, or just go to strat reserves. And the last unit is a solo Terminator Sorcerer, who is here to drop down for psychic support. Honestly, he fits the Cabal of Chaos's aim pretty well. He can drop in via Deep Strike, Death Hex a target, increasing your AP against it, and as a Psyker he increases your strength going into that target as well. Strength 13, AP 4, Soul Shatter last cannons with sustained hits from Dark Packs? Yes please. And at 1995 points, that's the list. My 10th edition Chaos Space Marines grievances aside, I much prefer what's here for the Word-Bearers. Keying effects off of malign units like Sorcerers, Masters of Possessions, and Demon Princes feels much better for the Word-Bearers than the Hereticus Genericus Pact-Bound Zealots detachment. But maybe you feel different. If so, let me know in the comments. Well, that's a wrap on this one. If you enjoyed this video, there are buttons for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to Julius Maximus, as well as my other generous patrons and channel members. Channel members and patrons get early access to videos, as well as free access to various STL doodads and a backlog of thematic battle reports. Just a little something for those who help keep the dream alive. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next one.